Hey, Dog Pound. This is Greg Newsome here. Just touched down in Cleveland. Excited to be a part of the family. I'm going to give it my all every single day for you guys. I'm not going to let you guys down. Go Browns.
Welcome to the Dawgs Podcast with your hosts, Blake Renneker, Zach Kopp, Justin Charles, and Josh All.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Dawgs. Before we go any further in today's show, we want to send a huge congratulations to Colt and Natalie Charlton from Cadiz, Ohio. They just got married yesterday. So, maybe on their way to the honeymoon. Big congratulations to them. Colt, maybe it's Colton for short. I don't know. Your wife emailed us, let us know that you were a big fan. We appreciate you listening all the time. And we just want to send a big shout out from 3 married guys. It's all great.
Good luck.
Yeah. We're just playing. I promise, wives. We're just playing. Big congratulations to you guys. We wish you guys a lifetime of happiness. Today we have Barry Shuck from Dawgs by Nature with us to dive a little deeper into the first round draft pick Greg Newsome, as well as some insight as to why the Browns didn't pick an edge rusher in this year's draft. Before we get into that, remember to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Please subscribe on YouTube. Remember to tap on that notification bell so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also find us on Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcast. If you don't mind, leave us a 5-star review. That helps the show out a lot. Lastly, remember, head to thedawgspodcast.com/schedule to cast your predictions on what games you think the Browns will win this year. I think Josh had some updates on how that was looking so far.
I do. So, keep sending in your predictions for the schedule results for this year for the Browns. We've got, just to kind of run through real quick, only 14% of the votes so far think that the Browns are going to win the opener against Kansas City.
Okay.
All right, but then we've got 100, so we're going 3 straight after that. And then we're back down to only a 14% chance against the Chargers.
Come on now, guys.
So, okay. 43% against Arizona, and then back to 100 against Denver, 100 against Pittsburgh. I like that one.
Yep.
Yeah, me too.
So everybody's like, all right, Steelers are going down. Only 71% think we're going to beat the Bengals. Then we got 71% say we're going to beat the Patriots. 100% say we're beating the Lions.
Okay.
So I think we kind of said that ourselves. But then we've got 0% think we're going to beat the Ravens in game 1.
Come on now, guys.
That's in Baltimore, though.
It is. But now here's interesting. So 0% think we're going to win that first game. The second game, what percent do you think
100%.
people think?
Is it 100?
It's 86.
So it's pretty close.
Pretty close.
Home field advantage plays big factor, people are thinking.
Yep. So then we finish out the season. Raiders, Green Bay, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, 171, 100, 100.
Interesting.
So
the Chargers one's kind of...
Come on, guys. Rookie head coach, potential sophomore slump from their quarterback who's got to learn a new system. Come on, guys. I guess the only thing is we got to fly out west.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
But yeah, remember thedawgspodcast.com/schedule. Get your votes in. We're going to keep that up pretty much for most of the offseason. And then, we'll break down the full results once we get, closer to the week 1 and we have more of a final roster and we do our actual week by week game breakdowns.
Yep. And then real quick, I just want to throw out there too, like everybody listening to this, watching on YouTube, make sure you send us in some introductions for the show. We like to play fan intros, when we kick the show off. So just head over to thedawgspodcast.com. The send a voicemail is right up top, or if you're on your phone, it's in the menu. Just click that, and then you can record right there on whatever device you're on. You just record your message, your intro, and it sends it straight to us.
Yep. Greg, we're getting tired of using Greg Newsome.
Yeah, I know. He's getting tired of us asking.
Yeah.
Justin can't even keep it together.
No, absolutely not.
Support for today's episode comes from Manscaped. Manscaped has the right tools to get the job done quickly, safely, and hygienically. Father's Day is just around the corner, and you probably need a gift for a hairy dad. Make your dad proud this year and get him and yourself the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0 and Ultra Smooth package. You know what they say, like father, like son. I didn't write that.
Cool, man.
What a dramatic pause.
Yeah.
The brand new Lawnmower 4.0 and Ultra Smooth package is perfect for you and the dad in your life to complete your grooming game. Get 20% off plus free shipping with promo code DAWGS, DAWGS at manscaped.com. The Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer is now available in USA and Canada. It's got 7,000 RPMs with skin-safe technology. New multifunction on-off engage travel lock switch created for jet setters. Gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave, and additional guard lengths with sizes 1 through 4 to let you trim to your liking.
Man, I thought you were like selling me a motorcycle or something there for a second.
Nope.
Wow.
Just a ball shave.
Oh, no kidding. Huh.
Again, that's 20% off and free shipping with promo code DAWGS, DAWGS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping, promo code DAWGS. It's dad bod season, time to get smooth.
And get them a shirt too, because I tell you what, these shirts are nice, like super comfortable too. I was thinking about ordering some more just to have.
Honestly, the shirts are nice. The boxers are nice. I heard a friend of mine got the cologne. It's super nice. So check them out. I mean, 20% off is a pretty good deal. Free shipping is a pretty good deal. Promo code DAWGS, DAWGS.
Love it.
Awesome. So like I said in the intro, we have Barry Shuck from dogsbynature.com with us again today. He's kind of becoming a show regular. So thanks for being with us again today, Barry.
Hey, how are y'all?
We're doing pretty good. Maybe not as good as Florida, but we're doing all right. It's getting nice up here.
Absolutely.
So what can you tell us about Greg Newsome? I know pre-draft you talked about him. So then the Browns, they were able to sit at 26 and get their guy. Did we get a guy who's going to bolster this defense into the top 5, top 10, like what people are thinking?
Well, as the Browns were preparing for the NFL draft, the two most glaring needs to fill with the defense were defensive back and defensive end. Defensive back meaning safety and also cornerback with the emphasis on cornerback. And when the pick came around, they took Newsome, who was rated as the third highest cornerback. He looks like a good starter and one of the better corners in this draft class. I think he's got everything that a modern NFL defense would look for in a starting corner. He's got great length and quickness. He's got solid size, excellent speed, and he's got the versatility to play in any coverage scheme called. Newsome runs a 4.3940. I mean, the dude can just outright fly. He has the ability to deny receptions, and he can defend passes at the catch point. Another aspect of him is his recovery abilities are excellent with that top end speed. I remember watching Deion Sanders back in the day, and he would bait quarterbacks by hanging off as much as 5 yards because he had that great top end recovery speed, and he did a lot of picks. Newsome has the same thing. Last season, Newsome was named first team All Big Ten, plus named All American, and he was part of 2 squads that played for the Big Ten championship. I think the entire pre-draft process, he was projected to go somewhere in the first round in the 20s. Y'all remember me coming on your show and giving you his name for round 1?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We kind of gave you some pushback on it, too, a little bit. So you were very, very on point with that.
Yeah, well, I'm officially right once a month. So that was it for the month of April.
I mean, that's a big right. That's good.
Yeah.
What do you have to say? I guess some of the talk about him was that other than the Ohio State game, he didn't face a lot of top tier wide receiver talent. Is that something you're nervous about with the Browns, or do you think his skill set transitions still against that top tier talent?
Well, I think Newsome's a really good football player. He's a film junkie, and he comes well prepared for his opponents. He has played in press man, off man, zone coverages, and he shows comfort and upside in each coverage scheme. I think he's above average, but not great with run defense. But in all fairness, quarterbacks refuse to throw towards him. Get this. According to Pro Football Focus, Newsome allowed just 1 touchdown in 471 coverage snaps.
Is that good?
Do you know which game that was? I'm just curious.
I do not.
Okay.
But now all of us can go out in the parking lot and throw the football, and every single one of us would have at least touchdowns scored on us, and that's just one day.
Yeah.
I think you're overestimating my ability to run.
I got you.
I don't think so.
Now Newsome does have two areas that are a concern. His lack of turnovers stick out, and injury history.
Yeah, the injury history is something we wanted to definitely dive into with you.
He played 3 seasons with 18 starts and had 0 forced fumbles, 1 recovered fumble, 0 sacks, 0 pick sixes, and only 1 interception. That, as far as a turnover ratio, that sticks out pretty well. Now, the injuries. He was never hurt in high school. At Northwestern, he missed 8 games in 2018 with an ankle injury, 3 in 2019, and then another 3 last year, including the Big Ten championship. He had a hamstring issue. Through his 3 seasons at Northwestern, he missed 9 games, but the good news is that none of these were injuries involving the back, neck, or knee areas. I think what is difficult to digest is that the Browns already have major concerns with Greedy Williams missing 20 games so far in 2 seasons. And then you think about it, Denzel Ward missed 11 games in 3 seasons. Do y'all agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why, I mean, I don't know if you watched our reactions live whenever the pick was made, but we weren't jumping out of our seats in joy. And I think that had a bit to do with it, was that injury history of knowing we've already got issues with that, injury issues in the cornerback room. And we're adding a great player, but we're also adding more injury concern, Yeah,
your reaction was deflated.
Yeah. We were also super tired too at that point in the show.
Yeah, I saw a lot of empty beer glasses too.
Yeah.
No.
I did not drink it all that entire night. That's a lie. I actually did a lot.
Okay, maybe I was looking at my desk.
Do you think Newsome pushes healthy Greedy out and he takes that starting spot away from Greedy?
Well, I think basically right now I see this as Newsome and Greedy Williams fighting for the right cornerback slot. Now, Greedy's got NFL experience, which means he has seen and done things that Newsome is not. I think if Newsome can remain healthy, which he currently is, he'll surely help this Brown secondary with either being a potential starting position or giving them some quality depth. I think when Newsome's on the field, he plays like his goal is to not let the receiver he's covering catch a ball all game.
Well, that's a good goal to have for a cornerback.
I was going to address some of those, the lack of turnovers he's forced and stuff like that. Does the fact that people didn't throw his way play into that at all? It's hard to intercept the ball or force fumbles if nobody throws in your direction ever.
Yeah, and that's exactly true. And after a while, he's batting down balls, or he's got tight coverage, and he's really good in man. Quarterbacks and defensive coordinators just eliminated him, and they just didn't throw his way. Now, he'd always take the best receiver, but if your second best receiver is having a great game, I can remember one time with the San Francisco 49ers, the other team's defensive scheme was to take out Jerry Rice. Well, in the meantime, Terrell Owens had a career game on like 184 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, but if Newsome can do that, and Denzel Ward is a similar player, then we've got 2 great cover guys that don't need help with double coverage and may not even need the safety to come around and help.
With the receivers that we have in our division, kind of just looking at the AFC North specifically. I mean, with Pittsburgh, I know Ben is kind of on his way out and the arm isn't what it used to be, but I mean, they've still got, Claypool and Deontay Johnson and Juju, and they've got Washington still there.
They just drafted that
Freiermuth, the tight end. They've got Eric Ebron still. I mean, they've got guys who can catch the ball. And then, in Cincinnati, we know what weapons they have. And, Jamar Chase, the new guy. They've got T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, a couple of their tight ends. I mean, they're not like fantastic, but they're also no slouches. They've got backs out of the backfield that can catch. Yep. And then, Baltimore, we rag on Lamar Jackson all the time because he sucks at throwing, but they added some good wide receiver depth in this draft class. And I mean, we also thought that Josh Allen wasn't that great of a passer for a couple years, and look what he turned into over the course of one offseason where he got a lot of good work, and all of a sudden he was, this stud. So
yep.
I don't know. I just wonder, do you feel like Newsome's skill set right out the gate, day one, can match up with the receiver specifically in our division?
Well, very few positions in the first round are not expected to start. Maybe offensive line, maybe linebacker, but everything else, if you're taken in the first round, you're drafted to come in and play. You're drafted to come in and play year one, day one, game one. That's what they draft you for. That's their need area. So you've got all of training camp and all the OTAs and all the off season to get ready. But come game one, you're expected to be on the field and be in a starting position. Now, like I said, he'll have to fight it out with Greedy Williams. And the hope is that Grant Delpit and Greedy Williams will be the players that they were drafted for, both of them taken in the second round. And if they're healthy and if they're the type of players they were in college and can adapt to the NFL level, you're talking about the defensive backfield might be one of the best in the NFL this year.
It's kind of crazy to think about. I kind of had this question. In college, who was the better player in college, Greedy or Greg Newsome?
I would have to say in the college level, it was Greedy Williams.
Okay. So
he was projected top 15 and he fell the second round.
So good for the Cleveland as long as this nerve injury gets. I was just kind of curious, I think some people, because of Greedy's injury history so far, and to know that they kind of forget that. I mean, he was considered steal of the draft by some people for the Browns to get him in the second round. And I think we kind of forget just how talented he was and what he could be if he's 100% healthy.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Now, as far as coverage skills go, I would go Greedy Williams in college. As far as tackling goes, I'd go Greg Newsome. Greg Newsome is a pretty good tackler. He's a good tackler on receivers, taking on running backs, taking on tight ends. He's hit or miss. That's probably one of his weaknesses. But Greedy Williams is a hand grabber. I'd coming out of college, he was not a good. He's like Sheldon Redwine. Both of them are not good tacklers.
Well, I mean, it's good to know that we've got that depth there now because
last year we didn't.
No, we certainly did not.
It's crazy the turnaround. Just to think of that.
And going into last season, we were relying on Denzel Ward on one side, Greedy on the other. But this year, going in, if we know that we don't have to rely 100% on either one of those guys because we've got a third guy that can rotate in and out if need be, or share snaps and things like that.
You got Troy Hill too. I know he's going to be like scheme specific.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think we kind of keep forgetting Troy Hill's added to this mix because he's going to man that slot role real well.
And we didn't really talk. I didn't. You might not be prepared for this. I just kind of thought of this. If Grant Delpit's 100% healthy, do we expect him to? I mean, is he going to be that playmaker on defense like we think he's going to be?
Yes, he's slated to start. If you go to any depth chart, now the ClevelandBrowns.com or Browns.com has not posted a depth chart because they're not in training camp yet. But any other Ourlands.com, ESPN.com, Grant Delpit is penciled in as the starter, and they expect him, and he's fully healthy too. So I think that's just an ace in the hole. I think Greedy Williams and Grant Delpit could be our ace in the hole. But getting back to, Greedy Williams had 8 interceptions in college. Newsome only had 1.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect. But I think it's going to be a great training camp, and those are going to be 2 storylines to watch. But I do know one thing: you can never, ever have too many cornerbacks.
Yeah, we learned that last year when Robert Jackson and MJ Stewart were running around there in playoff games.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, to their credit, they played well. I mean,
MJ Stewart did okay. Robert Jackson,
yeah, okay. For being pulled off the practice squad and getting shoved into a playoff game
against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
But, so
and they let Kevin Johnson go. They let him sign somewhere else. And same thing with Terrence Mitchell. They let him sign somewhere else. He signed with Houston.
So if you had to take a stab at who's starting in the defensive backfield, you're thinking what? Delpit, and then Denzel, and then maybe Greedy or Newsome, and then what are you thinking, like Troy Hill and John Johnson? You think that kind of wraps up the secondary?
Well, if you start with a 4-3, let's just start with that. Even though defensive coordinator Joe Woods uses the 4-2-5 over 67% of the plays last year, but let's just start with 4-3. It's got to be Johnson and Delpit as your safeties. Although Harrison can be either one of those. I love Rodney Harrison.
Me too.
So do we. Yeah.
And then your cornerbacks are going to be Denzel, of course, and then the winner of the Newsome Greedy with Troy Hill playing the slot. But if you got 5 defensive backs on the field, and one of those, we've discussed this before, one of those linebackers could be a safety. So you could have 3 corners on the field and 3 safeties, one of them playing in a linebacker. There's all your players right there.
Do you see us putting like a Ronnie Harrison in the back and sliding like a Delpit or a Johnson up to linebacker? Do you think our second round pick is going to kind of man that hybrid linebacker safety position?
Yeah, all the above. All the above. I see them rotating in and out, especially if they're going to go to a 4-2-5, and I see that happening all the time now. The guy they drafted, Richard LeCount, he is a phenomenal tackler. Now he's got some coverage problems, but he is just an absolute phenomenal tackler. The opposite is with Sheldon Redwine. I don't think Redwine's going to make the team this year. I think he's going to be cut at the end. But they've got another safety named Javante Moffitt that he was pulled up last year, then went to the practice squad and was pulled up. He'd be a good backup. He'd be a good safety to come in and play part of that field, because if you're going to have 5 and maybe 6 defensive backs on the field at all time, you've got to have plenty of safeties, plenty of cornerbacks. And back in the day, you'd only keep 4 safeties and you keep 4 cornerbacks. It wouldn't shock me if they kept 5 of each or even 6 of one of those 2 positions.
That's what's crazy now. Just, I feel like last year every show we were griping about the lack of depth, and then all of a sudden, free agency, draft, look at all our depth.
We almost have too many good players.
It's amazing how Barry and the front office can just go out after a hole in the team. Like last year's offensive line. The offensive line sucked. So what they do? They fixed it. I mean, immediately. And it was one of the best in the league. So is that going to be the same thing with the defense? Last year it was terrible, and this year it's going to be one of the best in the league. That would be awesome.
Do you think this is a prove it year for Joe Woods now that we kind of have the personnel to fit his scheme?
Well, I don't think so. I think he's in it for the long haul. I don't think Stefanski has any inclination to let him go. I think that's his guy. And understand this, coaches have like a fraternity. It's like Bill Parcells. When Bill Parcells went from the Giants to the Patriots, and he went from the Patriots to the Jets, 80% of his coaching staff followed him. So when he resigned from the Giants and he got the Patriots job, he called up Bill Belichick. He called up Charlie Weiss. He called up Tom Coughlin. Those were the guys, because everybody knows their role. everybody knows what to do, and you don't have to teach anybody anything. And there's no problem areas. They don't have to. There's nobody that's got a big ego to say, well, I should be the defense coordinator. I should be head coach. They all followed him. So this is his guy. They've worked together. They know each other. They know their tendencies. They know what to expect from each other. And that's usually what coaching staffs are about when they're formed.
Well, we've seen what it looks like when the coaching staff is not all on the same page and they're bickering and competing against each other within the organization. Oh, man.
True. You're talking about Freddie Kitchens and Greg.
Yeah. Baker's first year with Hugh and
Todd Haley.
Yep.
Hey, made for good TV.
Todd Haley.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not on Sundays.
Absolutely.
Not on Sundays.
And that doesn't win any games.
No.
Well, I was tired of watching Hard Knocks and listening to Myles Garrett's poetry anyway, so I can't remember whose poetry it was, but I was good on it.
Yeah, I just knew that I think Joe Woods took a lot of heat last year for how bad the defense was. I know me in particular, I kind of questioned some of our schemes at times, but I also knew that he was being dealt a pretty crappy hand with who he had to play last year because of injuries. So I was just kind of curious to get your input on, now that we seem to have his guys, if we still struggled this year, if you thought we'd make any kind of move. I'm on the side where this regime doesn't seem to be the knee-jerk reaction kind of regime where we would just let somebody go like that. That seems like the old Browns.
No, you think Joe Woods was handpicked by Kevin Stefanski. So he's not going to just play 2 years and say, well, this isn't working. And you're absolutely right. You look at what the defense had a lot of problems, especially in the secondary. And a lot of guys that they signed just didn't pan out.
Yeah.
Like Andrew Zendejo and Carl Joseph. They signed those guys in free agency to come in and be the mentor to Grant Delpit. Then Grant Delpit got hurt. So there you've got 3 safeties that are either injured or not very good that you were depending on solidifying that safety position, and which has been a problem all this time. Then Denzel's out a little bit. Then COVID put Myles out. And really, I don't think Myles was ever the same once he came back in for COVID. And even when he was in the game, Olivier Vernon, Porter Gustin, Claiborne, they didn't put the rush that Myles Garrett did, and the kind of abilities that he had, and the problems that to be double teamed and use a tight end to chip him. So all they did was, if we could take Myles Garrett out of the equation, then we can throw all day. And then the run defense, geez.
That was pretty bad too.
This year we're going to have 3 brand new defensive linemen out of 4. That tells you what their thinking is from last year about pass rush and run defense. That is not Joe Woods' fault.
No, I completely agree. I guess this is kind of a little off topic from what we have planned. Do you think with the bolstered secondary, we're going to see Myles approach, 20 sacks if he plays a whole healthy season? Because, the quarterback's most likely going to have to hold the ball longer this year. There's not going to be wide open people every single play. Does Myles get home more often?
I think that's going to depend on the other defensive end. I expect Jadeveon Clowney to be the starter. I expect Tack McKinley to back him up. I expect Porter Gustin to back up Myles. If Clowney can be what he was in his first 3 years in the league, and that's a big if, because he's had injury problems and he's not old, but he's getting older. If he can have one of those years to where you've got lights out pass rush from both ends, then you can't put a tight end on one side to chip and to help out blocking. You'd have to put 2 tight ends, or you'd have to put a fullback or a running back in, and that's your second blocker on the other side. So you're devoting a lot of bodies just for blocking. And if your pass rush is huge, then that helps your defensive backfield. If Clowney can have a great year, between the two of them, 30 sacks total, that'd be phenomenal. I think that's a big expectation, but I think it's a realistic expectation. Do you agree?
I do agree, and I think a lot does depend on Jadeveon Clowney, and I think a lot depends on Myles too. With last year, it's not his fault he got COVID. I thought before COVID he was the best defensive player in the league, and we talked about this, and then you just said it. After COVID, he just didn't seem like the same kind of player. I think the effects of COVID definitely hindered him the rest of the season. But I think this defensive line, if Clowney's healthy, I think like you said, 30 sacks is a high expectation, but I think it's doable. And I think if we even approach that number, we're talking about the Browns really making a run at this thing.
And look at Myles now. Have you seen the video where he's on his knees and he leans straight down?
Yeah, I have. Doing the shimmy shake.
Yeah.
Yep.
How does he do that?
He does a lot of things that I don't understand how he does, but
he's got a stronger core than I do.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
He's a freak of an athlete. It's insane.
I've seen your workouts though, Blake. I mean, don't sell yourself short.
They got the same build. Just
Yeah.
I got all those muscles under there somewhere.
You just look different in a jacket at the NFL draft, right?
Yeah. I thought that was a medium. It was a 3XL bursting out of it.
Dude. So, he's worked hard at getting back to being something over and above that he was last year. And maybe he identified that he didn't have the stamina. I don't know. He's not like he wasn't in shape. But you're right. After COVID, he just seemed to wear out and just tire out, and he'd be on the sideline. You could tell that he was sucking wind.
I think the COVID really hit him hard. And it kind of sucked because before that, he was on defensive player of the year type pace, with his sack totals. He was unblockable at the beginning of last year. I know going into last year, we talked about how we weren't calling him a bust or anything even close to that. We were just saying we were waiting for him to break out. And last year, those first, 8 games, I thought Myles was breaking out. He had all the strip sacks, the fumbles and stuff like that. And then COVID hit him and it just kind of derailed it. So I'm looking for him to kind of bust out of that again and only do it for an entire 17-game schedule.
Yeah, pick up where he left off and just keep building on it. Because you're right. Every game it was like, okay, when's that strip sack coming? Because it was every game.
For the first 8 to 10 games of the year, Myles Garrett was the Browns' defense.
Yeah.
He was unblockable.
And that was a problem because all they had to do is take him out of the game equation. Now, I know ESPN does a mid-season NFL MVP ranking, and they named 5 players. Myles Garrett was ranked number 5 after game 8.
it's crazy.
Yeah, so I guess we'll kind of go ahead.
I was going to say exactly what you're about to say. It's a good
transition into. I think a lot of people expected the Browns to take an edge rusher at some point in this draft
for that reason,
possibly even in the first round. Were you surprised at all that we didn't take an edge rusher, and do you kind of have any insight on why we didn't?
Well, yeah, I absolutely do. I think it was just assumed, and I said this, it was assumed that Barry would address either defensive end or cornerback in rounds 1 and 2, and whichever he took in the first round, he would take in the second round. But the guy that they had earmarked, now all big boards, if you've ever seen a big board, which you probably haven't, GMs put red stars on players, and that's as a reminder of guys that they want to try to get, and if they're still there and it's inching towards their slot in the draft, to whether they want to go ahead and go up and get it. But the guy that they had earmarked in round 2 was the defensive end from Houston, Peyton Turner. Mm-hmm. Well, the Saints took him at the end of the first round.
Yep.
So here the Browns had taken their cornerback. They had Peyton Turner, who was projected to be low second round, early third round, and the Saints took him in the first round. So now here the second round rolls around and their guy is gone. That's when they traded up and took the linebacker out of Notre Dame. Now, after the draft was over with, I had that question. I said, why didn't they take a defensive end? Why didn't they take a pass rusher? I assumed it was because they got McKinley and Clowney on one side and Porter Gustin on the other side. Well, I did an article. I named it, Browns Failed to draft defensive end. The reason. Most of the defense's weaknesses were addressed except one. So I did a complete article about it. And during my research into the article, and I lead into these other players and what their backups, 2 words, Curtis Weaver. Now, at times, he was a one-man wrecking crew at Boise State. As a freshman, he had 11 sacks and 13 tackles for loss. The following year, he had 9.5 sacks and 15 tackles for loss. It was named first team All-Mountain West. Curtis Weaver is on the Browns.
Yeah, it's almost like between him and Delpit, we've got 2 extra rookies coming in this year that, we kind of forget about them because they weren't there last year.
Yeah, and I think this is their young pass rusher that they think is going to come forward. In 2019, he had 19.5 tackles for loss, 15 total tackles, an interception, a forced fumble, and 13.5 sacks.
Wow.
He was named first team All-Mountain West. He was a finalist for the Ted Hendricks Award, and he was named Mountain West Conference Defensive Player of the Year. Now, when his college career was completed, he had set the Mountain West Conference record for career sacks with 34. He was also the only defensive player in college football history to ever average 9-point sacks or better during a 3-year stint. Don't the Browns need another pass rusher?
Yeah.
Yep.
I know our friend from Ireland was big on this guy. He's talking
really
about
big.
him, even a few months ago. It almost sounds like we got a hidden diamond in the rough or ace in the hole just sitting there waiting to explode off the roster. I mean, those numbers are, they're like borderline incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got one word, highly productive. Okay, that's 2 words.
Right. But I was going to let you go on that. But
who's counting, right?
Yeah. But he's an intelligent athlete. He's got a high motor and should become a solid defender against the run and against the pass. Now, here's how he came to Cleveland. He was taken in the 5th round of the last year's draft, the 2020 NFL draft by the Dolphins. He was never hurt in college and never missed any games as a 3-year starter. But during the practice with Miami, the front of his cleat bent under his own foot, and he heard a crack. He cracked his big toe, and when they took his sock off, his big toe was just dangling. They took him to the hospital, and there he was told his season was over. A few hours later, he was informed that he was placed on the waive injured list, which meant he'd go through the waiver wire. Now, when a player is placed on the injured waiver wire list and he's below a 3rd round pick, very few, if any, players are ever claimed in this situation off waivers, because this means that your team has to place that guy on IR, which means you have to pay him his contract, and he has 0 chance of playing for you for at least a year, if not longer. The Browns had just gone 6-10 under Freddie Kitchens and had the number 10 spot with waivers. Miami had number 5, so this meant only 8 NFL clubs could have gotten Weaver. Andrew Berry put in a claim for him and got him. Now, this meant that he was instantly placed on IR and was paid his contract rate for his rookie season, and plus he was saved a spot on the 90-man training camp roster. Now, do y'all think paying a guy for a full year of salary to get healthy was wise?
I think we're going to find out. I think if this, especially, I don't know, call me crazy, but I'm not concerned about lingering effects of a toe injury.
Well, and another thing too is, I do think it was wise because it allowed us to not have to reach or do anything, outrageous or crazy in this draft to try to get a young pass rusher later on in the draft. We got to go ahead and pick, the safety. We got to pick, another linebacker and things like that because we knew we had this guy already on the roster.
Yeah, absolutely. Weaver's 6'2", 265, and runs a 4.8440.
So he's a little undersized.
Yeah. But that means he's got room to grow as far as meat if he put 20 pounds on. Now, the good news about Weaver is that the entire offseason, he was in Berea and not only doing his rehab, but he was working out. He was learning the defensive system. He was bonding with other players. He was cutting. He was lifting weights. And he was being involved with the team's nutritionist. So he was in-house, so people already know him, and he already knows them. I believe that when Andrew Barry signed Pat McKinley with Weaver and Porter Gustin as possible backup, that he basically made the decision to help another position of need in the draft in each round. And then once he inked Jadeveon Clowney, where do y'all think another stud defensive end would even fit?
That's true. You probably end up cutting one of these guys you just signed, to be honest.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm not gonna gripe about getting JOK in the second round.
No, and I think that's just it. It gave us that luxury to say, well, we know we've got Curtis Weaver. Look who's sitting here in the second round. JOK's here. Let's go. Up. They only moved up a few spots to get him.
Yep.
And who knows? Maybe it opened the door for us to be able to go ahead and have that sort of luxury pick of taking a guy like Anthony Schwartz in the third round because of his speed, and that's something that we desperately need on our offense.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing this Curtis Weaver guy now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me read you a quote from Andrew Barry. He did a media Zoom call right after the draft, and I'm going to read this. He said, "We like the defensive end position group going into the draft. There are a number of prospects at that position who we also liked, but we are going to draft with a long-term vision for the team. And ultimately, we are not just going to pick for need or perceived need. The value has to be there, and we have to feel comfortable with whoever we are bringing into the building. But we like our group of current defensive ends."
Well, and he wasn't kidding.
Yeah. So basically, Barry is making plans for the long-term health of the team cap, so that he can later sign the top guys. Do y'all know that there are a total of 24 one-year contracts currently on this roster?
I didn't know it was that high.
Yeah, I didn't know it was that high. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, this will give the younger guys a chance to develop so that the coaching staff can see exactly what they have. If the younger guys can show that they are capable, that single year of their show 'em contract, they'll either play and progress or they'll be wearing another uniform next year. Now listen to some of the quarterbacks that Curtis Weaver has had multiple sacks on when he played for Boise State. Josh Allen of the Bills, Jordan Love of the Packers, Justin Herbert of Oregon, and the Chargers, and this year's second overall draft pick, Zach Wilson from BYU. Now, all of these guys are mega talented, and they were all taken in the first round. Remember, Weaver is currently on a fifth-round contract and paid fifth-round money. I believe that Weaver will be given a full year to season, then take over the other outside defensive end slot opposite Myles Garrett next year.
Man, I'm same way, Blake. Just excited. Like I just want to see training camp. Like where's this guy? I want to see him on the field.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, I know the big toe is an important toe, but it doesn't sound to me like we got to be worried about him not coming back 100% from his injury.
No,
I mean, it sucks that his toe is dangling, but I feel like he should be able to come back from that.
It's not a knee. It's not, Barry, what are the big injuries that you really have to worry about? I mean,
knee, neck, and back.
Knee, neck, and back. Yeah, is that it?
Yeah, knee, neck, and back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not Achilles?
Yeah. No, you can come back from Achilles.
Good.
You can come back from turf toe. And then it also depends on the knee. If it's the ACL or the MCL, those are susceptible to, but if it's the PCL is the tendon that's in the back of the knee that keeps your knee from going all the way forward. It's like a stop. And if you break that, you can repair that, and that will be okay. But the MCL and the ACL, that just weakens. And then if you've had two, now the players have come back. The linebacker from the Carolina Panthers, Davis, he had three, and they're all in the same knee, but he eventually played and had a good career and even played in a Pro Bowl, but that's rare.
Well, Barry, I think that pretty much covers everything we wanted to talk to you about. Thanks again for being here, giving us a lot of great insight. If you guys like what you heard out of Barry today, go check out dogsbynature.com and read all of his articles. Like he just said, he's got a great one on there about the defensive end position, and Curtis Weaver's in there. So if you want to learn more about him, check out that article. Thanks for being with us again today, Barry.
Yeah, exactly. Before I go, I am going to give you, each time I'm on, I'm going to give you the meaning and the origins of a football idiom.
Okay.
Y'all know what idioms are, right?
I'm actually an idiom.
That's usually what we call Justin. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to give you where it originated, who coined it, and we all know what it means. We just don't know where it came from. So the one I'm going to give you today is the West Coast offense.
Oh, cool.
The West Coast offense is a finesse offense that places a greater emphasis on the short passing game than on a run-oriented offense designed to control the ball like the Browns do. This offense, this attack was developed by Coach Bill Walsh while he was working as an assistant coach on the Cincinnati Bengals staff under Paul Brown from 1968 to 1975. The reason he developed it was his quarterback with the Bengals was Virgil Carter, who was accurate but didn't have a strong arm. So Walsh devised a system of shorter passes with a higher percentage of completions. When he became the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers, he installed it with their system. And, of course, that was during the Super Bowl years with Joe Montana. This term, the West Coast offense, came into being in 1985. It was a remark by Giants head coach Bill Parcells after they had lost to the 49ers 2 years in a row. And then in a playoff game, they beat them 17-3 using a stiff run game. After the game, Bill Parcells screamed out, "What do you think of that West Coast offense now?"
Very cool.
Oh, Bill.
Yeah, right.
That's awesome, though. I didn't know that. I mean, I knew 49ers and Walsh, but I didn't know it came from, like, Bill Parcells just being a Bill Parcells.
Yep. That's my football idiom on this show. Listen, I enjoyed my time with y'all.
Yeah, thanks for being with us. That was awesome. I'm sure we'll have you on again soon.
Yeah, sounds good. Y'all have a great week.
You too.
You too, man. Well, look at that, man. The Dawgs podcast. We educate people here.
Yeah, we're just a couple of idioms.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we continue on, just real quick, want to remind everybody about the Northwest Group. The Northwest Group is the leader in branded home textiles for the world's most loved and recognized brands in sports, entertainment, and lifestyle. So you can get yourself some bedding, some pillows, blankets. They've got all kinds of cool stuff on the website. Go check it out. From the NFL to Star Wars, the NBA to Nickelodeon, Harry Potter, the Northwest Group carries a wide variety of throws, pillows, much more. Like I just said, use promo code DAWGS when you're checking out, DAWGS. You'll get 25% off your entire purchase at thenorthwest.com. I mean, 25% off your entire purchase. That's good. It's a really good deal. So, again, head over to thenorthwest.com, code DAWGS, DAWGS, 25% off, and get yourself some cool stuff. I mean, I don't have the camera on the Baker blanket today, but I can switch over here real quick. You guys can see the Browns blanket behind me, the big helmet. They've got the cloud pillow, which is back here behind Justin. Just all kinds of cool stuff. So go check it out. Have some fun, browse.
Yeah. All right. So one more thing I want to talk about before we get out of here today.
Yeah, this ought to be a fun one.
Yeah. I can't remember who it was, but a guy came on the Cleveland radio show this week, said the Browns needed to extend Baker now or else it sends a bad message to the team. And I thought, do I agree with that or not? So I wanted to throw that out to you guys. Do you think it sends a bad message to the team if we don't extend him just by picking up his option?
I personally don't think it sends a bad message. Me and Blake were talking down the way over, and I said, you know what sent a really good message to Baker Mayfield? When the Browns kind of aired out that little drama with Green Bay, and they said, hey, Baker's our guy. We're not interested in trading. I don't think that you have to pay a guy a bunch of money just to make him feel like he's going to be part of the team. Picking up his option is sending a message, especially with how, this team's handled things. That's sending a good message right there, just saying, hey, we want you on this team. You're our guy. We don't want future Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers.
Well, it kind of just fits in line with like Barry just said, think of all those one-year contracts that we have on the team. I mean, they're all prove-it deals. And it kind of sends that message like, Baker, like you're a member of this football team. You're no different than these other guys. Everybody has to prove their place, and Baker's the kind of guy, at least the way I see him and from how he, comes across to me, that he loves that. He gets off on that kind of, okay, I'll prove it. He always has.
You almost want an uncomfortable Baker, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A guy who's got to come out with a chip on his shoulder, kind of prove the doubters wrong, that kind of thing. So, this is almost psychological, to give him that edge. And I think Baker knows, Baker doesn't want to play on this team without Chubb and Odell and Jarvis and, Myles or
Wyatt Teller.
Yeah. He doesn't want to play. He doesn't want to play on the team without those guys. So, he understands the way, the business side of this thing works. And let's be honest, the dude, he's not hurting for money.
No, as our, big time favorite Ravens fan always tells us, he's the insurance salesman. He's got plenty of money coming in from Progressive. He's good to go. But, Baker is, I love Baker's mentality, his competitiveness, his fight. And, kind of like we talked about the opposite of like Rodgers on the last episode or 2 episodes ago, whatever it was. And Rodgers is always whining. Baker doesn't whine. He's not a whiny guy. No,
and I think we saw him grow up a lot last year where he might still throw a little bit of shade at people here and there, but it's nothing like it. He's not in Twitter battles with Colin Cowherd anymore. He just kind of lets that stuff go. I'm sure it still gets to him, but he uses it in a positive way as opposed to as it being a distraction. And I don't want to. This year's not a prove it year for Baker. I think he proved it in the last 8 to 10 games last year. But I think the Browns still want to see him put back-to-back good seasons together before they dump $150 million on him.
Well, we've talked about it. Think of all the other quarterbacks that it's backfired for these teams. Deshaun Watson's another one now that they put the money into him, and what was that, just a season ago?
It's crazy how quickly that went south.
They did it with Jared Goff. They did it with Carson Wentz. We can name them all that it's happened to. The Ravens did it with Joe Flacco.
And I didn't understand how it sends a bad message to the team about not extend. The Ravens didn't extend Lamar. Are we talking about that, sending a bad message? Did Josh Allen get an extension?
Not yet.
No.
So, I don't know if I was buying that.
The only thing that I could see where it could benefit Cleveland maybe is if you get ahead on maybe huge market next year. That's the only way where I say, hey, maybe you're getting a deal, but I just saw they had the 6th most cap space for next year still with rollover cash.
I've seen a couple things about Lamar, some articles saying that the Ravens are actually treating this as a prove-it year for Lamar as well, because if they're going to give him a lot of big money contract, they got to know that he can play the next 5 years at quarterback. You know what I mean?
Well, and here's the thing. The goal isn't to win 14 regular season games. It's to go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. So if what you do doesn't translate to playoff wins,
and he doesn't have any good commercials to fall back on.
Yeah.
When's the last Lamar Jackson commercial you saw that was good? I've never seen one.
I don't want to, obviously the Browns, have only been to 2 playoff games in the last, 15, 20 years. We won one of them. But you'd be dumb not to say that come playoff time, teams don't kind of figure out how to stop Lamar. It's a different animal, And so do they want to risk that? Because great, you can keep him on your team and pay him a ton of money and you'll probably win 13 to 14 regular season games every year. But are you going to win the Super Bowl? I'm not saying they can't, but I'm just saying that's what's in their brains this year. So, and I think it's the Browns, I think Baker could have a huge year this year.
Well, and that's been my argument about this whole, with the Ravens and Lamar. They've had 3 shots at the playoffs, 3 years in the playoffs with Lamar, and it hasn't worked out for him. We've had one. We've had 1 shot at the playoffs with Baker, and we won a game.
Yeah.
We damn near won the second game.
And
so,
I know he did win a game last year against the Titans, but that was, they got out of there barely.
mm-hmm.
And then he scored 3 points against the Bills.
Oh, man, that game.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
No.
I know there's going to be people all up in the comments talking about how much, because there's nobody softer than Ravens fans. Like you can't even speak slightly ill. You can't even say, I think somebody's good, but they just don't do this that well. They're going to be all over you.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I don't think it sends a bad message to the team. I think the Browns have a vision for the future. I think for the first time in our lives, everybody from top person in the organization to coaches to players to the water boy, everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, I think it's the opposite of sending a bad message. I think it sends a good message to the team that
we have a plan.
We have a plan, and everybody, like, this is a competitive organization. You have to earn your place here. We talked about that with Barry. Some of these guys, there's going to be good players. You've said this, the last few shows, Blake. We're going to cut good players this year.
Yeah.
There's just no way around it. We're going to have to cut some good players. So best man's going to win. And those kind of position competitions and position battles, we've never really seen this much in Cleveland before because
our 6th-round picks are usually slotted day 1 starters.
Yeah, and we're throwing tons of money at Kenny Britt to come in and not play.
You didn't have to bring that up.
Sorry, dude.
Oh man.
Just for comparison, you guys.
We've been there.
It's been bad.
Yeah,
we've done that.
Which so we're going to talk about in upcoming episodes. But PFF has Baker as a top 10 quarterback.
I've already said, and we'll do a hot take show too, but Baker in the MVP conversation this year.
I think the offense, the offense is set up where if he plays the way he did the last 8 games last year, he could put up some crazy numbers. I'm not talking like 5,000 or 5,500, but I'm talking 4,000 yards and 30+ touchdowns.
Yeah, 35 touchdowns, easy.
Yeah. But all right, I just want to get your guys' input, what we thought of that. That was a little kind of thing I saw on Cleveland news this week. I'm trying to kind of keep an eye out on news coming out of rookie minicamp, but I don't think there's
a ton.
There isn't a ton. Players are there. I'm excited to see Anthony Schwartz. That's maybe besides like JOK and Newsome, obviously, but one of those. I'm excited to see Schwartz and how we utilize him.
Yep, and that'll be interesting to see where he slots in on that wide receiver depth chart because Higgins is back. He's good. He's a great receiver, and DPJ was coming on toward the end of the season last year. He really stepped up. So the growth from year 1 to year 2 for him could be another hidden gem on this team.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for checking out another episode of The Dawgs. Big thank you to Barry Shuck. Head to dogsbynature.com to read all of Barry's articles. He's always bringing a ton of good stuff to the show, and he has a ton of good articles on Dogs by Nature. So we love having him on. Make sure to tune in next week. We're going to do some hot takes, maybe some keep cut trade scenarios. Hopefully Zach will be back. It's going to be, things might get interesting next week. Might get a little heated. I'm going to have to take my blood pressure medication. We need more fan intros like we touched on earlier. So head to thedogspodcast.com. Leave us a voicemail. Get your intro on the show. Thedogspodcast.com/schedule. Get your predictions for what games the Browns are going to win this year. We want all your feedback. We want to thank Manscaped for sponsoring today's episode. Use promo code DAWGS, DAWGS for 20% off and free shipping. And we hope you guys all have a good week.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dawgs Podcast. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter at the Dawgs Podcast and become an official Dog Pack member at jointhedawgs.com.